In this screencast, we are going to create a basic web form that collects information about a person and also records an activity against that contact that timestamps when they submitted on the form. So the scenario we will use today is we will create a helpline or a hotline web form where folks can submit information about the kind of assistance they may need, which it could be like legal assistance, financial assistance, whatever that assistance is. So to get started, before you create the web form, you need to make sure that the fields of information that you want to collect already exist. Now you want to consider the kind of contact information you want to collect about the person, and you will also need to have the activity that you want to create. So in this case, because I'm using a helpline kind of form, I'm going to create a custom activity that so that we know that whoever submits on this form has that activity. So what I did first is under Administer, Custom Data and Screens, and under Activity Types, I created a custom activity called Helpline. So if you look down here, Helpline Submissions. Well, I know that folks who do submit on the web form, they will get this Helpline Submission activity, custom activity assigned, and it'll be timestamped, so I know when they actually submitted on the form. The form is also going to ask things like what kind of assistance you need. And since those kinds of questions are really, again, time related, time stamped, I'm going to create custom fields that extend this actual custom activity. So I created custom fields. I go to Administer, Custom Data and Screens, Custom Fields. I created a custom set of fields called Help Like Questions. And you can see that it extends an entity, the helpline submission activity type. If I view the custom fields, you can see I have an assistance needed. I'm going to ask these questions. There's some options I'm going to ask them. So I've asked for what kind of options, what kinds of assistance they want. You can add more here, but this is what I'm going to have them select. And I'm going to ask some details. Maybe there's some other kinds of and they can put in a note about any more information about the assistance that they need, just so that we can see and figure out how we can assist them. So I created these custom fields. I also have all the contact fields that I need so that I can contact the person. So you need to make sure those things are set up. So I've got the custom activity type. I have the custom activity fields for that particular activity type. And now I should be pretty much ready to go. So we are going to create the web form. And the web form is actually, that feature is located in the Drupal side of PowerBase. So to get to the area where we create web forms, you'll need to have special permissions to create web forms. If you don't have the permissions, please reach out to support, and we can help you with making sure that you have the permissions to create a web form. So I'm going to go to Administer, Drupal Administration. I'm just going to open that in this tab. And to create the web form, we're going to click on Content. Under Content, we're going to add a contact to create our web form. And I'm going to select Web Form. And from here, I'm going to create what is the name of the web form. So I'm going to call it PTP. I'm going to call it our helpline form. You can call it whatever you want. You got to give it a name. You can give it an alias so that it's easier to pass that link around. And if I want to give it an alias, I could just, it's basically the information after the URL, right? The URL here after your name of your PowerBase site. So I'm going to keep it simple so it's easy to share this. This is a public form anyway, and so I may just, that should be form, I may just create an alias for that. And then I'm going to click Save. So that's just going to get it started. form hasn't been created yet. There's no fields on it yet. I need to enable the fields that I want to use from PowerBase. So in order to do that, I'm going to go over to this Civi CRM side, and I'm going to enable the fields that I want. So I'm going to click on enable, and enables means what are the fields that I want from PowerBase so that I can collect that information from the form, and that information will go directly into the PowerBase database. So note on this left-hand side, there's so many things you can do. You can create more than one contact. Webforms allows you to create, collect information from multiple contacts. I'm just only going, in this basic, I'm going to just create one contact. I only want one information from one contact. So I'm going to start here. Notice there's other things you're going to collect. We will get to activities, but notice you can do events, you can do memberships, you can do other things. I'm going to start with a contact. And for this one contact, it is an individual. Notice you can create different kinds of contact types. It's an individual. There's no other types. And maybe in this case, I'm going to just call it contact info, right? Because I just want to collect information from that contact. So it just gives it a label. Existing contact, just, it just always defaults to include that. Existing contacts has something else to do with lookups. And we are not going to do that in this very basic form. I'm just going to uncheck that. And basically, I'm going to just start, checking off the boxes of the fields that I want to collect about that contact. So under contact fields, I'm going to collect the first name, the last name. I'm going to allow a middle name. We're going to have Spanish speakers. So I want to make sure I have the middle name included. Other things here I may want to know is maybe the preferred language. My organization has capabilities to be able to handle both English and Spanish. So I want to know what is their preferred language. The other thing I may want to know, you can decide other things here that you want, but I'm going to leave it there. Your matching rule is important. If the contact exists, you want to make sure that you're not creating a duplicate contact if you don't want to. So I like to default to my strictest default rule, which in this case is first name, last name, and email. So I'm going to just leave it as my default. In the constituent info fields, there is some information here I do want, and I do want to know pronouns because it helps us know, how to address the person, and pronouns are very important to our organization, so I'm going to include pronouns. So you just have to know where your custom fields are. Everything else here, I'm going to go and grab some address fields. So if they have address fields, I want that. So there's the street address, city, postal code, state, the state. I want to know this because depending on the assistance, they need to be in my particular state. So you may want to know this information. And in this case, I'm going to use from the web. In case there's an existing contact, I don't want to blast away good information if I have a home address location. It's from the web and they, accidentally misspell a street name, it doesn't blast away the existing data in the database. I'm going to call it from the web so I know it's information coming from this form. I want a phone, and I'm going to assume that this is a mobile phone. And again, I'm going to call this from the web. Yes, I'm going to collect email. If they're going to enter on this form, most likely they have an email. So I'm going to also call that from the web. And I think that's about all I need right now from the contact field. I'm trying to keep it simple. It's a helpline. People need information right away. I want to just gather the information I need. The other piece of information I'm going to need is now, because I want to know when they submitted on the form and that this is actually a helpline submission, I'm going to open up activities, and I want to have one activity that gets added to this particular contact. So since I'm only adding one activity, the activity in the detail section, you can have it can create a link to view the actual web form submission. So that's really useful. I like that. You have to have certain permissions to see it, so not everybody can see it if they don't have that permission to view the web form submission. But I really like that, so I'm going to keep that there. And then I'm going to select the activity type that we're going to create with this activity. In this case, it's going to be the helpline submission. That's the activity I want created. It's going to apply to the contact person, right, from that contact info. Everything else is pretty much going to be, I'm just going to leave it as is. It's going to automatically do the date. If I don't check any of these, if I put a date here, if I check that on, it's going to require that they put a date. But since this is already happening online, less is more, so I don't need to add any of these kinds of things. It's going to complete it. I'm not going to have any subject or activity subject or details. That's about it. I may include the campaign if you had a campaign so that I know this is part of the helpline program. I created a campaign earlier, so I'm going to grab that because I want to apply this to the campaign. The other thing I'm going to do is, notice it shows the helpline questions, those custom fields. So I'm going to expose both these fields, which is the kinds of assistance they want, and the note field is the details that they can then definitely add more information if they like. Just, this add dynamically may be useful so that anytime you add more fields to the helpline questions custom data set, if I clicked on that, it'll always add it. But in my case, the helpline questions are actually used for two different kinds of activities. So I don't always want to add dynamically. I want to choose the fields that are going to show up on this form. So that's what I do here. So I think I have what I need right now. You can always come back and add more if you need to. So you always can edit this. I'm going to save my settings. And what it's going to show right now is on this web form. You end up on this web form tab, and it shows you all the fields. And just so you can see, I like to go back to the view. The view is actually what the form would look like. This is before you do any theming, right? So the theme is where it looks nice. It looks like your website. But I just want to see, what would the form look like? What's the information I'm collecting, right? So you can see that there's a contact info. This may not be in the order, and this may not be like the labels I want, but at least I can see, okay, I've got the fields of information that I want to collect. So at least they're all here, but now I need to do some work with them. So a couple of things I'm going to do first is I'm going to go back to the web form. Notice there's a few things here. I'm going to first just check my form settings, and this is always good to check. You can add a confirmation when they submit something. They can get that. Or you can redirect folks to a different location. Otherwise, they stay on the form. In here, the submission access is good to know. I'm allowing anonymous folks. So that means folks who aren't logged into the database, which is basically what this helpline form is. It's going to be, this form is going to sit as a page that links off a menu item off my website. So I'm going to let people who don't have logins enter on the form. Authenticated user just means anybody with a login can also enter on the form. So I'm going to leave all that, keep it pretty simple right now, and I'm just going to leave it like this. We can test this stuff later. Keep it simple. I'm going to hit Save Configuration. So now let's go to the web form itself. I'm going to want to move things around or change some of these labels. So I'm going to do a few things here. First thing sometimes I want to do is let me check the things that are going to be required. So I'm going to require the first name. If you go down, you'll see this require column. I'm going to require the last name. I'm going to require the preferred language. I don't want to assume. So I'm going to have them list the language. I'm really require the address at this point. Maybe on follow-up we can get that information. At the very least, I want the email. We can always come back and get the phone number, but at least the email is going to be required. So if we get those three pieces of information, it also can do a match and see if the person exists or not. And I'm going to also require that they let us know what assistance they needed. That's the whole point of the form. So at the very least, these four things are going to be required, or five things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to hit save. So just note, if you leave the page without clicking save, it's going to forget what you did. So always click save before you do anything else. And I like to go back and forth. So let's take up the view. And now you can see it puts the red stars. These are required. All right. I'm not done. Let's do a few more things here. I'm going to default things. I'm going to move some of the fields around first so that it makes more sense. So I'm going to go back to the web form. I'm going to keep first name, middle name, last name where it is. I think what I'd like to know is their pronoun next. I'm going to just move that up. I may want to see their preferred language. I then may want right away their email and then their phone and then possibly and then I'll put the street address later. Notice I'm going to move the state before the zip code. And before you move anything else, the other thing is like, these things are sort of grouped together. I'm going to move then, these are questions. I'm just going to move these out here. I'm going to show you what this looks like. So before I leave this page, so it saves what it's the order that I want, I'm going to hit save. And let's take a look at the view. So now you can see I've got first name, middle name, last name, the pronouns, there's the preferred language, there's the email that's required, I ask the phone number, and so on and so forth. And there's the assistance needed and some details. All right. And then again, these are just sort of remember these are part of the custom field set. So I may not want to show these. So I'm going to show you how to change these. And I may want to change some of the language that's on these labels. So let's take a look at how to do that. So I'm going to click on the web form area. This is again the area where you can go in and change things about the fields. You can change the options. You can change the labels. Let's work on changing labels first, because sometimes that's easier. So for example, here's a simple one: the state province. I'm just like, well, I know I'm only sending it to folks based in the U.S., U.S. centric and all. I'm going to click edit, and I am going to just change the label to state, right? Note I can also, sorry, let me hit that. I can also create a default value in this. So since I primarily work in North Carolina, I'm going to default it to North Carolina. It's less data entry for that person, and I'm going to leave it there. Right, so there it is. So now it's state. The other thing I should have mentioned is like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm going to only really can only provide assistance if I know they're based in North Carolina. If they're out of state, other things we can do, but let's require the state and the postal code. So I'm going to just save that first, that I'm going to require that as well. So next I'm going to change postal code. Here we use the term zip codes. I'm going to edit that value, that label, and just call it zip code. So you get a sense of how to change, and you can read all this information, how to change the label. So if I now go back to the view, I can see that I have the contact info sort of grouped together, right? There's email, phone number, street address. Now it's defaulted to North Carolina. The state and zip are required. I have the assistance needed, some details, right? I've got these fields that are still showing. I can hide these labels. I'm going to just quickly show you how to hide labels and hide the fields. Obviously, I'm logged in, so I can see things, but I don't want them to see those labels. Again, that comes from the custom field, the custom data set. So I'm just going to hide this. If I go to that, I edited it, and I'm going to go and just hide the label, make it private. And I'm going to do the same thing for that activity. So you can hide these things. You can hide labels so folks don't see it. All right. So I've hid that. It's going to look interesting. If I go to view, remember I'm logged in, I'm going to see these blue things is where they were. But when you don't have a login, you don't see these at all. Let's do a couple more things here under the web form. I'm going to change the preferred language. So preferred language, depending on your database, I know that we can only provide English or Spanish interpretation. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to edit. And I'm going to notice that there's options. Note live options are just, what you get in the database. If you click static options, you can change these labels. You can change what you can show in these options, and this happens everywhere. So I'm going to, just uncheck it to disable it and only show the ones I can offer. And I'm going to change the labels. So, because English United States just seems really weird. And I'm just going to say English or Spanish, right? And it's required, and I'm going to hit save. So now if I go to view, you can see now in a preferred language, they only speak English or Spanish. So it's a really useful thing. So we fix this area. Again, you may go through and want to add, maybe I want to change this label here on the assistance details. And I'm going to just say, please like describe your needs, you know, describe the needs, the assistance you need, anything, like you can just say anything else you want to tell us, anything else you want to let us know. Again, whatever you want to put there. I'm just keeping that simple. And now if I go to view, I can see its first name, last name, preferred language. It's good, states there, the assistance needed, whatever. They could choose one of these. They can choose more than one. I decided to leave it as checkboxes. You could change this later. And I think I got basically what I need right now. So this is just a basic web form. Just going to show you quickly on the web form area. You can send emails to notify, but we'll talk more about that in the advanced, more complex web form later in another screencast. But to show you, this is just a basic web form. And now, of course, I want it to look like my website, so I need to theme it. So let me show you how to do that. Now, remember under view, I created that alias, right? But you need to know the node ID. So to get to the node ID, so that you can get the theme, you just click on any of these other tabs. And I'm going to click on web form, and I can see this is node ID 2. So it's number 2 is what I'm going to do, and that's going to be my theme. I like to theme things after I'm done moving things around, because once you put the theme there, sometimes it takes up a lot of your screen. So basically, let's say I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to go to administration to change the theme. I'm going to go to configuration. I'm going to go to my theme key. And in this case, to change the theme key of a web form, you'd have to use this thing called node ID. So node ID, remember, equals 2. So we're doing this 2, and I'm going to change it to demo. So I'm going to save that. And now if I go back to content, notice I'm still on the Drupal side, right? Because it doesn't have the PowerBase menu. I'm going to go to content. There's my PTP helpline form. I'm going to click on it just to take a look at it. And now you're going to see the theme. So this is the theme. Now note, I am logged in. So you can see that there's information. You can see the other tabs, right? You can still see the web form. You can still move things around. It just has a different look to it, but it's a little nicer. So now I am ready to test this. And what I'm going to do is I can just grab the alias from the view tab, you grab this link. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a private window where I'm not logged in, or go to a different browser, and I'm going to test this. I'm going to enter some information. I'm going to go over here. And I'm going to enter, so there's a form. This is what the public form looks like. You can see there's the first name. There's some required fields. You can add more information on here, but again, look, that's in a different screencast that shows you how to add more language or content to your form. We're going to start here, and I'm just going to go ahead and enter some information. So I'm going to call this one Allie Aggie. So I'm going to just only put in the required fields to keep this simple. I will put in my Shive, my preferred language. I'll just put English. I will put in an email. And I won't put anything in here. I'll leave it as North Carolina, and I will put the zip code 4. And I'm going to just say I need legal assistance. You know, I could add more here. Love to talk to someone. And that's it. I'm going to just hit submit. And you can see that because I didn't go anywhere else, you can go and do another form. I'm basically done. They can receive notifications. Again, that will be in the more advanced web form screencast. But let's go back now to the database. So I'm back in the database. You can sort of see it here. And I now can take a look at who is submitting by clicking on results. And I can see who's submitting. And look, there's Ali Aggie. And now if I can just click on the contact info, I can actually, it'll go to PowerBase and you can see there I am. It puts in the source. There's the information I collected. You can see there's the pronouns. And then look at the activities right here. It's going to create this activity called Helpline Submission. I know is timestamped for October 25th. I can view the information in there. And I can see, note, I can click on this if I have permissions. I can click directly on the web form submission. If I just open this and click on it, it goes to their form. Sort of cool. And then I can go in, I can see, well, what was going on in their helpline questions. I can see, oh, they needed a legal assistance and they would love to talk to someone. So you can see the information right here. You can search on this. It's really helpful. And again, going back to, you can go and see the submission, the way it's set it up. And that's how you create a very, very basic form to collect information in PowerBase, a very basic one.